I have a problem. I have a Total War problem. I have a Total War Warhammer 3 problem. You see, I love playing Warhammer 3 Total War, but every time I go to play it, I end up picking the same 3 to 4 factions. Chaos Dwarves? Absolutely. Greenskins? Oh, you know I'm there. Skaven? I love them. Chaos Warriors? Need I say more? And whenever I'm starting a new campaign, and I go to select a new legendary lord, one of those factions reaches out to me and says something along the lines of,
"Hey man thing, you should really totally help give the Skaven things more warpstone. Those knife-ear elf foes need a good great kill stab in their pretty little faces."
And well, it works. But I want to fight against these cyclical urges, if you will. I want to break free of just playing these factions. And to help me do that, I devised a technique. Challenge, if you will. Introducing the wheel. Now, the wheel isn't exactly a new idea. Sure, many people have done wheels before, where you spin it, you get a new legendary lord, and you play through that one. But I figured for me, it would be especially helpful since I'm stuck in playing these 4 to 5 factions, and I just can't seem to break free. So what I figured is each week, or whenever I need a new Total War campaign to play, I'll spin the wheel, it'll pick a legendary lord for me, and we'll play through that campaign. At the end of it, I'll give a rating for it, what I thought it was especially fun to do, how complex it was, how difficult the campaign was, so that I can give some of you guys some insight into these campaigns and if they'd be fun for you, and maybe to help out some other players that are just stuck playing the same 2 to 3 factions like me. So this wheel, I put every single legendary lord on. Those I've played before, and a lot that I haven't. So, before we get to that first wheel spin that I've done, let me go ahead and set some ground rules. First of all, I'm going to play each of these lords on the legendary campaign difficulty and the very hard battle difficulty. Secondly, I'm only going to shoot to attempt for completing the short campaign victory, whatever it is for them. If I want to play a bit of the lords afterwards, then we'll go ahead and do that, but I'm only requiring for myself to finish that short campaign victory. That way, I get a bit of insight into how the faction plays, and normally by then you can reach those end game armies, and by that point you can often be auto-resolving a lot of these fights. Third, while I'm going to try to go in with as little prep as possible, some of these factions are pretty complicated, and it's not entirely obvious what sort of unit compositions they favor, so if I end up doing a little bit of research during the campaign, I'm not going to be too hard on myself. Oh, and last thing, I am not necessarily opposed to save scumming. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to try to do it, I should say, very often, but I'm not holding myself to do an Iron Man run or anything like that. If we feel like retrying a battle or something of the such, I'll go ahead and do it. The objective of this is for me to have some fun, not necessarily to have the most difficult challenge in the world. Now, without further ado, let's spin that wheel! Oh, and before you go, make sure to check out my other YouTube videos if you like this one. And if you like those, consider subscribing to the channel so that you can see some more Total War content. Thanks. 3, 2, 1. The wheel is away. Oh, what do we get? Oh, what do we get? Who is this? Oh, okay. Wait. Count Noctilus. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, Count Noctilus is Vampire Coast, which I've actually wanted to play that campaign through and have a good excuse for it. Yeah, it's this guy. Okay. It is the Dreadfleet. All right, so this is good. This is perfect. So this is a really good intro one for me, I think. I've never played Count Noctilus, so that's great. I literally have never played his campaign. I've played a very, very, very small amount of Vampire Coast before. I think I only played, Luther Harkin. That's the only guy I've actually clicked on. And I think I only played like 8 turns of them. I will give this initial rating out of 10 for how excited I am to play Count Noctilus. I'll give it a 7.5. 7.5 is my initial rating for Count Noctilus on how excited I am to play this campaign, because genuinely I have wanted to play Vampire Coast in the past, and this is a good one for me. Count Noctilus. I think this was the perfect first spin for our wheel. It fits my addiction of playing the evil races in Warhammer, but also breaks me from any of the factions I've played so far. And boy, let me tell you, this really broke from my usual. Now, I'm not completely clueless when it comes to playing Horde factions, but I am certainly not used to how Vampire Coast takes it on. Count Noctilus starts with his ship and the Galleon's graveyard capital settlement. They're both pretty similar in nature and can make identical structures, but the ship that Noctilus carries around with him needs population surplus to make any building at all. Noctilus begins pillaging next to the High Elves in the lovingly named Donut Island. After the first battle and the subsequent settlement battle, you're given essentially free reign on where you want to go next. I immediately checked the short campaign victory conditions to see what I needed to do, but it didn't really help me at all. See, the short campaign victories I'm used to seeing are something along the lines of kill this faction, control this settlement, and also sack, raise, occupy 30 settlements. This can give you some guidance on where you might want to start moving next after securing your first area. Noctilus, however, doesn't give a flying Dutchman where he goes and what he does. All he wants is to gain 8,000 infamy, which you gain from raising settlements and winning battles, and to sack, raise, occupy 30 settlements. While this is great for giving you completely free reign over where you want to go, it can also be a bit difficult to know where you should go next, and I felt this by, I feel like, floundering my first 10 turns or so, sailing around and trying to focus on ports, as I knew that was a pretty big mechanic for me. I felt like I didn't have a great direction on where I should go, who I should try to be friends with, and what to do next. The lack of direction, even as an experienced player, is alarming. Because normally, like, legendary, very hard campaigns, you're like, shit, I need to make sure my first 10 turns are perfect. Go here, attack this, move this, get your province, start attacking over here immediately. They're gonna kill you later, right? Noctilus is just like, wee! Wee! I'm having fun in the ocean. Wee! That is how it feels to play this faction. Eventually, I just decided to sail around and attack at random, which was a lot of fun, but eventually got me into some trouble. I had mistakenly thought that the only way to make these pirate coves and port settlements was to attack them and make a cove. This was totally wrong, and in fact, the Vampire Captain heroes are way better and make them for relatively low cost. I don't find this out until later. Nice. Auto it. Sack it. And then we will establish a pirate's cove. Boop. There we go. That is how we're supposed to do this. This frees up Noctilus to attack and sack the lands wherever he wants while his heroes take over the port creation. This mistake led me to attacking a lot of factions early and got me into some hot water from turns 30 to 60 in what I will dub the defense and destruction of Galleon's graveyard. Whoa, ho, ho, whoa, what the fuck? What do you mean? There's just a dude here? Why? Oh my god, I didn't think anybody would attack here. The problem is, once a Pirate's Cove is established, there doesn't seem to be anything the faction that settlement belongs to can do about it. This was really fun, and it felt super piratey to have like a secret pirate cove that was skimming off of their hard work. But after invoking so much ire from these factions, they had no choice but to go after the only settlement I actually had, the Galleon's graveyard. I was attacked turn after turn from elves and lizards and men alike, sending 2 or 3 armies every turn to destroy me. I was blindsided at first and lost the graveyard quickly, but fought to take it back. After reclaiming it, it was an onslaught of defense turn after turn. I felt stuck. I couldn't complete the campaign if I just sat here all game defending. At the same time, I didn't have a great idea on how I should structure the army, as I was new to the coast and hadn't looked anything up. I tried running a lot of guns, a lot of Mournfang ghouls, and a lot of artillery. That worked? Alright, I guess. But every battle was very painful, and I ended up losing a lot. On the advice of one of my Twitch chatters, thanks Broken Helix, I started to move towards the Depth Guard, and then the Necrofex Colossus, as Noctilus gave them a lot of buffs. Finally, I was able to dig myself out of this hole that I've been stuck in, and was lucky with an event giving me +5 to all of my recruit ranks for a couple turns. So I had an army of rank 8 Depth Guard and could finally take these battles with ease. I earned myself enough money to afford an army to defend the graveyard, and with that, Noctilus was back off plundering the seas. Now that I was back on the high seas, I could start raising and destroying those lizards, which kept me bound to the Galleon's graveyard for so long. I made my way to the Lizard Boy Kingdom and started plundering them, but just when I thought I was free, Reichland started sending his best and brightest with help from the elves to take down the graveyard for himself. I had a decision I needed to make. I could either fight battle after battle with my secondary army, trying to fend off the would-be captives of my beloved capital, or I could embrace the seas fully and let go of all my worldly possessions. It was at this point I started to look at the brass tacks of it all. I was spending 3,000 gold a turn on an army to defend a settlement that was only making me 1k a turn. Spiky Rock Island was making me 1,000 gold a turn. So he said, you know what? Instead of having an army defend it, let's just let them have it. I have all of my recruitment. It's just I carry it with me on my back. So it doesn't matter. I can just recruit and do whatever I want wherever I am. We're chilling. We're chilling. We're ungettable. And while the graveyard did have 1 or 2 unique faction effects that I could take on tier 5, I decided to cut it loose and rely fully on my pirate coves and the ship on my back for the booty I needed to take the rest of the game. With the Galleon's graveyard gone, I was truly all in, needing to plunder and pillage my way through the land. I was living on the edge of a blade, but also felt the freedom I hadn't felt in a long time. With no settlements to wage war on, I was truly a seafaring freebooter, with untouchable pirate coves funding my seaborne crusade. All I have to do is whenever I need a building so that I can recruit like regiments of renown, we just take one real quick. That's it. And besides that, we just go around and we raid the open oceans. I felt unstoppable, and so long as I could win these fights, no one would be able to prevent my rise to infamy. I spent some of my infamy on new admirals and pushed my way through the land, only taking settlements if I wanted to recruit regiments of renown. Noctilus and I sailed off into the sunset that was the Lizardmen faction until finally I finished the campaign and the 30 settlement requirement in the destruction of Cathay. Well, with that campaign done and dusted, let's go ahead and give it some ratings. For complexity, I give Count Noctilus and the Vampire Coast 9 cannonballs out of 10. There are a lot of faction mechanics, with treasure maps to explore, rights to enact, pieces of 8 to fight for, dead to raise, and captains to put in their office. You also have an infamy mechanic, and can discover 3 verses to buff your army. You don't have a short campaign victory that tells you any direction to go, and it wasn't until about 50 turns in that I figured out I had a hero that could make pirate coves for me. I didn't get to do a lot of these mechanics, but I look forward to a second playthrough one day to fully embrace all the fun mechanics at your disposal. While I think it is a high complexity for first-timers to Vampire Coast, I think that makes it more attractive for more experienced players to play again and again. For fun, I will give Noctilus 7 big boomy boys out of 10. I had a great time, but I really didn't start having a lot of fun until I gave up Galleon's graveyard and went off the rails. Noctilus himself is incredibly powerful, with one of the best blue lines I've ever seen a lord have, and some incredibly strong unique effects. His army composition gets incredibly fun once you start adding in several Necrofex Colossus, but until then, it does feel a bit stale to me on my first run-through. I certainly don't think I played the armies correctly, and I'm positive I missed some strong compositions. I look forward to trying this again as well one day, and changing up my early and mid-game comps. And finally, for difficulty, I will give Noctilus 8 pieces of 8 out of 10. Noctilus's starting army didn't feel incredibly strong once you get out of the first 10 turns, so each battle felt really difficult, siege battles especially. Through my own ignorance, I didn't start using vampire captains to make coves until much later in the game, so I think this definitely contributed to my difficulties. I feel like a more experienced player would certainly help here, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think Noctilus and the Vampire Coast are an incredibly strong faction overall. Overall, this campaign was a roller coaster with many, many blunders being made on my part and a lot of learning to be had. It took me 105 turns to achieve short campaign victory, which is certainly the longest I've taken so far, but it was also one of the most rewarding ones I've played yet. Once I shed the weight of permanent settlements and relied on the bounty of my ships and my coves, I felt like a true pirate with nothing tying me down. I enjoyed Noctilus a lot, and look forward to the next time we team up to plunder the high seas. But I'm curious, what do you think of Noctilus? Do you think you'll give him a shot if you haven't? Let me know down below, and be sure to check out my Twitch for my next spin and campaign. As always, if you like this video, be sure to check out my other ones. And if you like those videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more Total War content. Until next time, goblins, take care.